Okay. I think I've had so many calls about a certain part that I explained. Oh, trying to figure out how to fit this thing. Let me get it back. Okay. So I don't know if it's gonna help. But I got a lot of calls and people were just like, we couldn't hear. And I just want to go over some of the parts that had issues. Let's see. I need to make this. Okay, let's work on this volume part. I think that's a measure thing. Okay. Okay, let's see. All right, so a lot of people just contacted me and said they couldn't hear me. And they've sent some questions for me to answer right away. Like, you need to clarify this. If you're on and you missed something from the last presentation, can you just let me know? I'm going to be going back over some things. I just got so many messages. I really apologize for that. I had no idea. So if you missed anything and you want me to go over it, just let me know right now, please. I think a huge part. Somebody told me that they missed. Let's see, they missed the investment part. Is there anyone who is there and missed something and wants me to get back to it before I start answering? Can you guys hear me? Is this better now? Is this better? Can somebody let me know? I just need to know if this is better. This is for anyone who didn't hear something, so I can just go over it. I've had like almost 8 messages saying, Lily, we missed a huge part of this and we want to go over it. Okay, so this is what I'll do. I'll just go over it. I'll just go over it again for anyone who missed anything. So if you can go to my notes, if you can go to the notes that I posted earlier, if you can do that, that would be awesome. Please, just you guys bear with me. Just go back to the notes. I'm going to go over the entire presentation again. I had no idea. I really apologize. I swear, I've been bombarded. Like, volume. If you can just go back to the notes and we can start. Anyone who is on, just go back to my notes and we're going to start again. Because this is not for me. This is for all of us. Is it cracking a bit? Okay. Is this, let me stop moving it. Is this better? I just need, Emmanuel, confirm. Is it better? Good. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to do this entire presentation again because I want everyone to take something out of this. There'll be no point for me to, spend time and put this together, and then there's, we don't take something home. So can I just be sure that it's clear? And then let's take it from here. Are we good? It's clear? Today's class was about savings for college for our kids. So, and not just for our kids, even for us. So I talked about the different plans that you can save in. The very first thing, not even a plan, it's just the regular savings that everybody does. You can just save money in your account. But the disadvantage with just saving money in your account is that the money is not working. So why put money in your account where it's not going to work for you? That's not smart. So for that reason, I'm just going to cross that away and say, nope, don't save money for college in your account and let it sit because the bank will use this money and build wealth for themselves. So the next option for savings for college is the Coverdell Education Savings Account. If you're on and you're listening, just go to my wall and get the notes. My sister posted the notes the last time, but if you can just go get the notes. It's on my wall. I posted it. Just get the notes so you can follow with me. The Coverdell Education Account is an account that you can also invest. They have a lot of tax exempt benefits as well, certain securities that you can invest in. But this account, however, you can only put $2,000 a year, which means even you and your spouse decide to save for your kids, you're not going to put $2,000 each. You're just going to put $1,000 each. So that brings it back to $2,000. That's your limit. Then there are 2 other accounts that just get handled together. There is the Uniform Transfer to Minors Act and the Uniform Gift to Minors. It's another way to save money for your kids' college, tax-free, tax-exempt. You put them again in securities and things like that. The only difference with this account is the fact that your kids have access to the account when they turn 18. and you cannot control what they are going to do with the account. So once your kids start to use that money, it's theirs. So if they choose not to go to school, it's not, it's not your business. There's nothing you can do. They take the money and squander it in one night. That's their money. It's not your money. So it's something to keep in mind. So now the next college plan, and the one we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today, is the 529 college savings plan. 529 is just the tax code that governs this plan. And it's always good when you have something that's already in the tax code, because it means it's a qualified plan. That means there is a standard. There are certain things that apply across the board for everybody. So this is a tax deferred plan. Okay, let me not use, I don't want to use that word. I want to make it really easy. This is just a plan that encourages parents to save money for their kids' education, and they get tax benefits for that. So if you save money in an account, in a 529 account, you only use it for education, you don't get to pay tax on it. And it's only run by state agencies or organizations in the state. It's not a federally done program, no. But all the states offer it. It's just, it varies from state to state. Different states have different laws that govern their 529. Overall, there are a few similarities, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty, it starts to change on some levels as far as the benefits, the contributions, and things like that. So there are two types of 529 plans. There's a prepaid 529 plan, and then there's a savings 529 plan. So if somebody comes to you and says, I have a 529 plan, I want you to enroll your kids, then always ask, which one is it? Is it the prepaid, or is it a savings plan? And I'm going to go ahead and explain the difference. A prepaid 529 plan is a plan that lets you lock in a tuition at a certain rate in the current times to apply it in the future. So if you go to a school where you want to invest or enroll in one of their programs, what you're going to do is you're going to go and lock it at that rate. Maybe the tuition for, how much the tuition costs. If it's $20,000 a year, you're going to invest in a program that's going to let you save the money that will pay that amount for that tuition. So, which means 16 years from now, your child is in college. That money, that price, that tuition rate that you locked in, that's the tuition rate that should apply. So, however, there are a few limitations to this plan. Now, the next option is the savings plan, the 529 savings plan. The 529 savings plan is different. This one can be used, in different institutions. What happens here is you enroll in a plan, and money is invested in the stock market. So the stock market, whatever earnings you make in your stock market can be used for your child's education. So when that happens, guess what? You have enough to cover everything. And it doesn't only cover tuition. It covers room and board. It covers computers. It covers everything that is under your child's education. So it's something to really keep in mind. So there are two types. Again, like I said, there is prepaid plan for 529, and then there's the savings plan. So I'm going to talk about the differences of this plan, because when you understand the differences of these two plans, you kind of know, where to go. And I tell everybody, just run when you see the prepaid. But I'll walk through the steps because I put in a few points for you. So the very first thing is that with a prepaid plan, it's locked in a particular institution, which means if you do the prepaid 529 plan, your chance to go to that institution. If they don't go to that institution, you're going to have to pay. They'll take like a huge penalty to transfer it. It's not worth it. Unlike savings plan, where you put your money and it's invested for you, you can use it in any institution. So it's something to really keep in mind. Another difference that I put there was also let me see the point I put. Okay, the first one was where, being locked in one school, and then the next one is it's how much you can contribute. So for the prepaid, there's a limit. They don't let you just contribute. No, there's a limit to how much you can contribute. But for regular savings, you can do up to even 500,000, depending on the state, which is good because now your child is going to be covered, irrespective of what expenses will be at that time, or inflation and all those kind of things. So it's really something to bear in mind. And the next thing now is if it's backed by the state. The prepaid is backed by the state. Again, I guess it works with the fact that the very limited amount is saved, so they can back it. But with the regular 529 savings, since you're investing it in the stock market, the stock market, it fluctuates. So nobody can guarantee guarantee, if you're going to make profit or not. It's something to just keep in mind. The next difference now is the age limit. So for the prepaid, you have to have an age limit. They just don't put enroll everyone because they know at a certain age, the money should have gotten to a certain point that it will apply to your child. You cannot just enroll anyone because, again, they have that restriction. But for the regular 529 savings plan, anybody, anyone, there's no age limit. Your beneficiary can be your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-grand-uncle, anyone that wants to go back to school, you can open that plan for them. Then the next one, another difference that they have is the location of the beneficiary. They have to be in that state. That's for the prepaid. But for the regular savings, no, they don't have to. And then, of course, the enrollment period, the prepaid has a very strict enrollment period. Meanwhile, with the regular 529 savings plan, you can enroll anytime. And the reason I'm going through all this is because I want you guys to realize that the prepaid savings plan is not the smart way to go. So if you're a parent and you're trying to invest for your child's future and education, make sure you go for the 529 savings, regular savings plan. I'll not call it regular, it's called savings plan. I call it savings plan. That's something that you need to look into if you have to go. So if you have to invest in your child's future. So now we're going to go now deep into what the 529 savings plan is and how it works. So like I said earlier, with 529, you invested in the stock market. So how can you enroll if you're thinking about enrolling for your creating an account for your kids? You can go directly to a state agency. So you can just go online. I think I put it there. If you go under your you can go under your college saving plan network. You just Google it and it's going to tell you which options you have, right? So it's something to just look into. Just check, you see which states, what is. Then the next thing is you can go through a broker, right? The main difference with all this is usually the fees associated. When you go through a broker, which is great because you get to know more about what you're investing your money in. Unlike sometimes with the with the plan manager directly, they don't tell you as much, right? They don't, it's not as information that you get. So it's something that you need to keep in mind. So there are several different options that are offered. There are several different investment options that are offered for you. It doesn't matter how you get it, but they give you the options of how to invest your money. So the main thing you have to think about is your child's age, right? So the first one is the age-based option. I love this one because it calculates how much risk your plan can sustain based on how old your child is. So when your child is like 2 years old, guess what? They're going to be investing it in very aggressive funds. But as your child is growing older and your child is getting to college, to high school, they start to become very moderate. So they're going to invest your money now in, those accounts where there's not too much fluctuation. So you can hardly lose money once your child gets to college. So that's the second option. That's the first option. Another way to invest for your child's 529 is in a custom-based plan. Here you can decide if you want it to just be static, which means you pick a rate, you lock it at that rate. You're not going for anything crazy. Just mellow. Some people who don't like taking risks, that's the one that works for them. They keep it at that level and, it makes them sleep better at night. That's always something to think about. Sometimes you can just decide and choose your different ones based on, your knowledge as well of your stocks and bonds and mutual funds, if you know how to manage those kind of things. But I always say for someone who doesn't know this a lot, don't stress yourself out of it. Just get yourself enrolled in the age-based plan. It works all the time. Fidelity offers it. All these different companies that offer different plans, you can always go to them and they're going to give you a really good age-based plan. The next thing I decided to, I want us to look at is things that we need to know when we're trying to set up a 529 savings plan for our kids. Not just things we need to know, but questions that we need to have answered. Have this at the back of your mind, have this knowledge, be empowered with it so that when you're making that decision, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And the very first thing is, who can open a 529 plan? Anyone. If you're a legal resident in the United States of America and you're 18 years old and above, you can open it. So anyone can open an account, Nobody should tell you, I know be citizen. No, uncle, get an account for me. So, and anybody can open an account. It doesn't only have to be a parent. Grandparents can open it, aunties aunties, uncles, even friends. Your friend can open an account for your child, a 529 account for your child. Anyone can do it. So who can be the beneficiary? Anybody too can be the beneficiary. The beneficiary can be kids from your own biological. It can even be you. You can create a 529 savings plan for you if you're planning to go back to school. A lot of people don't know that, but you can decide, I want to save, I want to take chances. Who knows? If the market is doing well, it could bring you some money by the time you go. But let's say 7 years down the road, you want to go back to school. That's something to also think about to help you with your tuition expenses and things like that. And when you withdraw the money, it's tax free, especially if you make any earnings. The earnings are tax free. And the next one you need to keep in mind is, what are the tax benefits? And I'm going to explain this because I want us to really get what I'm saying here, right? When we talk about these tax benefits, they say this thing has a lot of 529 has a lot of tax benefits. Don't get fooled. It doesn't mean if you invest in 529 you're going to get a break in your federal tax. No, the benefits, the deductions work better in your state income tax. However, when you invest your money in your 529 and it makes any earnings, if it makes profit, when you withdraw that money and you're going to invest it in your child's tuition, you don't have to pay any federal tax. Remember, any money you make in the stock market or anything, that's earnings, is considered income to you. So normally you get taxed on it. So the difference now is, because you've invested this money, you don't get taxed on the earnings of this money. I want us to get this really well. The money that you contribute is an after-tax money. However, the earnings that you make on this money is tax-free if it is used for education. Okay, so if you invest $5,000 and you make earnings for $2,000, example. Okay, when you withdraw your money, that $2,000 is supposed to be considered income. However, because you're going to use it for your child's education, you don't get a tax on it, because of course you already pay tax on the $5,000 that you contributed anyways, so you don't pay tax on it. So I hope that is kind of clear, because sometimes people think, oh, because I contribute in a 529 means I get a federal tax break. No, you don't get a federal tax deduction now, but you get that break on your earnings when you're drawing it. But for the state benefits, that's where now you get really good breaks, depending on the state you're in. And I provided extra information at the end, because not every state is going to give you this benefit. So if you're like in Texas, where we don't have state tax, that you don't get that benefit. But if you're in a state where they offer the benefits, what will happen is they'll give you a break for every money that you contribute. Let's say like New York, for example. I think New York, it might be New York. Yeah, there is New York, there's Oklahoma. Oklahoma will give you $10,000 off your income, your taxable income, if you contribute 10,000 to 529. So if, let's say, you made, I like to use 50,000. Why am I always using? Okay, if you make $80,000 and you contribute 10,000, right? Or what am I going for? If you make 40,000 and you contribute 10,000 to a college fund, to a 529 savings plan, when you're paying your state tax, they're going to take off the 10,000 and they're only going to be taxing you on that 30, the difference of the 40,000. So if you made 40,000 and then you contributed 10,000 to a college fund, that 10,000 is not going to be included as your income that you made that year. So it is great, but that's only if you're in a state that offers this benefit. Because if you're in certain states like California, they pay state tax, but they don't offer the benefits. And I've put at the bottom, I've put extra notes to help you kind of figure out what states, what state each state offers. And there are some states that have state tax, but they're not going to give you that break. But there's some that will give you the break. New York will give you the break up to 5,000. Oklahoma will give you up to 10,000. So, make sure you look into all that information when you're trying to plan, when you're trying to invest on it. So the next thing we also need to know that I want to talk about is, yes. How 529 savings impacts financial aid. I know you're going to hear a lot of people telling you, oh, your 529 is going to impact your financial aid. If you're following my notes, I put something there. I put 5.6% versus 20%. Let me explain. When your child is applying for financial aid, right, whatever is considered as the parent's asset, it only affects the child's financial aid up to 5.6%. I'll do this slowly. When your child applies for financial aid, of course, they have to say what the parents own, right? Okay. When they say what the parents own, it only impacts the child's access to financial aid by 5.6%, which means for every $100 that you have saved for your child in the 529, your child's financial aid is only affected by $5.60. That's it. But if you create a savings account under your child's name, guess what? It affects your child's financial aid by 20%, which means if a child is applying for financial aid and say, okay, I have this account that my parents opened for me that's in my name, that is considered the child's own money. So guess what? For every $100 that the child is supposed to have access to, it's going to affect it, that the child has, $20 out of that will be taken out of whatever financial aid that your child is supposed to get. So I want us to get this right, because sometimes people want to discourage you and tell you, oh, it's going to make my child not to get financial aid. That's a lie. It might reduce it, but it doesn't stop your child from getting financial aid. And because the account is in your name, it's not in your child's name, it's in your name, it's only 5.6%. So if you have If you have $1,000, guess what? It's only going to affect your child by $56. That's it, right? But if your child had $1,000 in their account, it's going to impact them. It's going to reduce their financial aid by $200. So if you create a savings account and put it under your child's name, thinking that you're saving for your child's future, that one will have a bigger impact than a 529 plan. So just think about it, and it's still better to have the 529 than to have that. Oh, something I forgot to mention last time, the American Opportunity Credit. Well, the IRS doesn't permit you to have two tax breaks for the same income. So since you get a tax break or you withdraw your earnings tax free, your child cannot have the American Opportunity Credit because you've already had this break, so they cannot receive the break. I'm just going to put that out there so I don't forget, which makes sense. I mean, if your child has, other kids should, other people who deserve it should get it. If anybody doesn't understand the tax part, the how it affects financial aid, I'm going to explain it again. It's really something I want us to get so that nobody comes and intimidates us with this. People are going to meet you and tell you, oh, no, if you get 529, your child is not going to have financial aid. No, big lie. It's actually considered smaller than anything that the child has in their name. So the next thing I put there was who owns the account. It's always going to be your account. So the day your child becomes naughty and you want to take away that account, take it. If your child doesn't want to listen to you and they say they don't want to go to school, that account is yours. Of course, you're going to pay the penalty on your earnings, but the account is yours. It's never to your child. So it's not like the other accounts that I mentioned earlier, where your child is going to have access to the account when they're 18 and you cannot tell them what they're going to do with it. No, this one you tell them is for college and it's college alone. So which is good because you have that control over it. Then now the next thing I put was the penalties for withdrawals, or if you use the money for something else. If you remember, I kept saying you only get taxed on the earnings. So that you have a 10% penalty if you withdraw the money and you use it for something else, right? So if you withdraw the money for your child's college tuition from the 529 plan, let's say you have an emergency, your house got on fire or whatever, and you wanted to use it, the government you're not gonna pay a penalty on what you contributed. No. So if you contributed 20,000 in that account, you're gonna take your 20,000 free. The only penalty that you pay is on the money, on the profit that your 20,000 made for you. So I don't know if you get it. So if your 20,000 made 5,000 profit, you're going to take your 20,000 back in full, but you're going to pay 10% tax penalty on that 5,000. And of course, you have the tax as well to pay. So don't, let people not discourage you from getting a 529 thinking that you're going to lose a lot of money. It's not like the 401k. The 401k, if you withdraw your money, you're not up to 59 and a half, you're taxed on the entire account amount, and then 20% of tax is withheld. No. With the 529, you're only taxed on the earnings. So your original contributed amount goes back to your pocket. So there's not really a big loss here, except for your little earnings. So, it was a good way to probably save the money. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If you need me to clarify that again, I will be more than glad to do. So next thing is the fees. One thing I'll say about the fees is it depends on how you open your account. Sometimes if you go directly, if you go directly to a state sponsored program or manager, you pay less fees, because it's direct, and then you get enrolled and you start to manage your program. But if you go to a broker, the broker will probably charge you fees because they have to get a commission. But the good thing with the broker is if you meet a broker that knows their stuff, because there's a lot of brokers out there that I don't know what they're doing. But if you meet a broker that knows their stuff, they're going to really explain to you what you're getting yourself into, benefits, and how you can control your account, and what changes you can make, and what limitations you have based on the IRS code 529 and all those kind of things. So